Geez, Gordo, maybe pass on the $1,500 glass of wine? I wonder how many of those speaking engagements he'd have to do to buy a bottle like that. Have to say I didn't see that move coming, and yeah, that's a setup for his time on the moon to be sure. Hey guys, Pete here. This is my For All Mankind Season 2 Episode 6 breakdown. It's titled Best Laid Plans, and as we move into the back half of the season, things are starting to come into focus. We'll get into what those plans are shaping up to be, but first, let me give a quick spoiler warning. If you haven't watched episode 6 yet, then this will absolutely spoil it for you. Hit the subscribe button, go watch it, and then come back. And with that out of the way, let's jump into it. Plot-wise, I really enjoyed the Soviet delegation coming to the US. I think it's been a thing sort of hanging over this series, that there was never any perspective on what was going on with the Soviets. We only saw things from one perspective, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it does add to the tension of all the interactions that they have with each other. But in an alternate history situation, where we're expecting things to turn out a different way, I think it does become necessary for us to see their side of the story. And we've got these two parallel things going on with them. We have an escalation of the Cold War. We have the militarization of the moon and the space program in general. But then we also have this Apollo Soyuz thing, which on the surface is there to foster goodwill. But as we see in this episode, nobody really wants it to happen. We get the Pentagon's perspective. They would be more than happy for things to fall through, as long as they're not the ones with egg on their face. We can see that the official position of the Soviets is to not give an inch. And then we got Dani in there. She's just happy to be in the room. She's just trying to make the most out of her command. And then, somewhat surprisingly, Thomas Paine is really behind the idea for history's sake, which I guess somebody has to be. Because it looks like this thing needs to happen, but both sides are more interested in not giving anything away, not showing any weakness, not making it easy for the other side. And it looks like Paine's our guy, or at least he's our guy to delegate things to Margot, which I will come back to. I'll tell you what though, this is the second time they showed us a nicer side of Paine. Showed that he really cared about his job, that he wasn't just the politician, wasn't just the ear of the president. And I gotta say, that puts up some red flags. I have to imagine that we're going to see him lose his job one way or the other. That was one of the big takeaways I had from this. And one of the other things that it made me think about was, as we see Ellen getting closer to moving away from her position and her working with him so closely, I hope there's not some kind of scandal or something else that's going to come out of that situation. Either way, to me, it feels like they're definitely setting something up with Thomas Paine. It could be as simple as he gets pushed out of the position in an election. But there's tension at the top around this handshake in space, and that means Margot has to figure out a way to make it work. And that was mostly enjoyable to watch. We see that there's some chemistry going on, I think, between her and Sergei. They're both in a tough situation, but figure out a way to work together. Aleda gets caught up in that as well. And it seems like there might be an issue with her supervisor, Bill, who's a familiar face that we've seen throughout the entire run. But in the end, they get the design to work. They present it. Everyone's happy. Sergei acts like he wasn't involved in the process. And then he breaks the stalemate with the transmission codes by telling what theirs is first. And pretty much everything's back on track by the end of the episode. We get some good character moments as Dani and her crew member hang out with the Cosmonauts. Things start off rough, obviously. They go for burgers, and you think maybe that's going to open the door, but there's still kind of a lot of posturing going on. And then we see a slight break whenever the Soyuz commander talks about the astronaut dog, Laika. What was interesting about that to me was that they were not really in agreement. Nobody changed anybody else's mind, really. But they still managed to connect on a human level. And I would guess that they have a higher respect for each other, which is probably going to be necessary as a result. Dani's story ends with what almost felt like a stinger at the very end of the episode, when she arrives in Russia with her crewmate and they get a much different reception. We'll have to see what's up with that in the next episode, though, because they never get past the introduction. So I opened up with Gordo, and yep, that's his plan. He wants to go back to the moon and try to get Tracy back. I thought that it was pretty interesting that we had never seen her husband on camera until this episode. And I guess he turns out to be what we were expecting. He's the kind of guy who has bottles of wine that Thomas Jefferson used to own. He's awfully confident and doesn't seem too worried about Gordo's plans, which could turn out bad for Gordo, let's be honest. However, it seems like he's been on this path to overcome what happened the last time. So I'm not really sure how him going back to the moon and then striking out with Tracy would really fit into that. Unless, of course, he is just heading for a meltdown and always has been this season. We'll have to wait and see. Either way, it was a fun twist. You kind of saw it come to his mind as he was overhearing his son talking to Tracy, and he went outside and sort of looked up at the moon. But I was still pretty surprised to hear it come out of his mouth. Tracy, on the other hand, is starting to bond with the Marines, it looks like. And I guess that makes sense. She wasn't really fitting in with the other astronauts because of her celebrity status. And it looks like her skills at piloting the LSAM might come in handy. She's supposed to be training one of the Marines, but he doesn't look like he's very good at it yet. And that makes you wonder if she's not going to be involved in whatever it is they do. The only other thing that happened up there was we do hear her talking with Deke again. She's kind of talking about she wants something that lasts, nothing on Earth lasts. Almost sounds like she might be missing Gordo, but really? Is that where we're going? I'm not sure. It seemed like they were going out of their way to show that she was happy with her new life. Then she goes to the moon. We find out she's not that happy, at least not in that environment. And now her ex-husband, who she hasn't seemed all that interested in lately, is coming to try to win her over. Elsewhere, we do get a little bit of Pam and Ellen. We could see that Ellen is all in on this idea of getting back together, and not unsurprisingly, Pam doesn't trust her. She doesn't want to throw everything that she has right now away again just to watch Ellen not be able to pull the trigger, if you will, make a real commitment to the relationship. We see her go and talk to Larry afterward, and of course he's worried about her coming out. He doesn't really want a divorce. He likes the life they have together, and you kind of feel a little bit bad for him. And it's one of those situations that kind of hit because neither one of them did anything wrong here, and his reasons for not wanting things to end isn't entirely selfish. I think we still have to imagine that if Ellen is going to try to make this a real relationship, go public with it, then she's going to experience a backlash and will probably have to quit NASA. Having said that, you can still easily understand her position and understand why she might go that direction. She's in love. That's all there is to it, really. Beyond that, we get a little bit of Ed and Karen. We see them watching a Sea Dragon launch on the TV, and Kelly's trying to write her letter for the Naval Academy, and they get into this conversation about why they adopted her. So it goes back to a real thing that exists in our timeline, and that's Operation Babylift. I'm not sure where they're going bringing this up at this point. I think we'll see more about that in the next episode. I think the big takeaway here for me was that we get a little bit more insight into how hard things were for them after Shane died. We find out that they were separated at a time, and that Kelly played a key role in them coming back together after they adopted her. I'm not sure what's going on here. I did find it a little bit relieving that we didn't see any new interactions between Dani and Karen. I was glad that we kind of didn't have to go there. We did see Ed at work. We saw him doing a flight simulation with his Pathfinder crew. He looks like he's on top of his game as far as that's concerned. His crew seems impressed. Things seem to be moving along well there. And we'll just have to wait and see what's going on at home and how things develop. Ed and Karen have always come across as the kind of couple that stay together no matter what. They have their problems as individuals and as a couple, and they've dealt with their share of tragedy. Most of that has appeared to keep them together, though, so it's hard to put together something that I'd like to see happen with them. Kelly's nearly an adult now, which means she'll be developing as an independent character who has her own arc in future seasons. I don't know, I kind of like things as they are there. Ed had his moment earlier in the season. They were there for each other. Karen's got the business now. She seems in her element there. Maybe they don't need to be in the center of things this season. I definitely like this episode better than the last one. It feels like it's gaining some momentum now. Always enjoy some focus on Margot, and they put her in an interesting position. Even brought some on-screen chemistry into the mix. You have to imagine that her working with Sergei and then Dani bonding with the Soyuz commander will be important later, because let's face it, conflict is coming. Not sure what to expect with Gordo and Tracy, or even what I want to come out of that development, to be honest. I guess hopefully it's just not extreme to the point that they come back together only for one of them to get killed off, right? I think that's a good place to leave things. Let me know what you think about where we are and where we might be going. Probably not a great sign that the Marines completely missed the target when they were trying out their new guns. So let me know what you think about that. And anything else that's on your mind about this season so far, because we are making our way towards the end. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.